is about the bottom line dollar.
We are moving on, folks. The population of the world back in the 1960s and 70s was 3.5 billion people. October 31st of this year is going to be 7 billion.
Wow, we've doubled in less than 40 years.
That's right, and in 2050, it will be 9 billion. Now, everybody's asking, can the Earth sustain that many people? Would that create bad environment? Would that be really worse living? But you know, folks, the Earth has a lot of capacity. You know, I mean, you look at China, you look at India. I mean, how many thousands of people per mile do they live?
And they're smaller countries than many other nations.
That's right. So there are great big university professors are involved in trying to figure it out, whether the Earth can sustain that many people. We're growing 76 million people a year.
That's amazing. People would argue that actually our changing world climate, we seem to have worse storms, we seem to have earthquakes more often, floods more often. People would say that we're already at that tipping point with our population and our pollution as a result of the population.
But folks, you would also like to ask, so which are some of the countries that are growing their population? The United States is only growing at 1%. The Middle East has the largest growth. For instance, Qatar is 11%, UAE is 9.1%, Bahrain is 6.7%, Kuwait is 3.6%, and you will ask, who's losing the population? Russia, Poland, those are the countries, even Japan. It's kind of always interesting to say, what is the age longevity in each and every country? We have some of them up here. The life expectancy in Afghanistan is only 44 years. Compare that to Nigeria, which is 52. Then you go to Bolivia, 67. Asia, it's 69. Then you move to Jamaica, 73. North America, it's 78. UK, by the way, I didn't realize UK is 80 years. Canada is 81. World average is about 70. And the oldest population sure to live is in Japan. It's 83 years old.
That's pretty telling, isn't it? It tells you all in one that there are regions of the world that are under political turmoil, economic turmoil, and that's where the expectancy is relatively low.
That's
and
right.
You look at relatively stable nations like Japan, who have had a great industrial revolution. They have found a life that's sustainable well into your later years.
But then they're not having babies.
They're not having babies.
That is, you know, that's kind of amazing. I guess people will be moving to Japan.
The thing I found very interesting about that article is that India and China, you always are told that they are the highest growing nations and India's growth rate is phenomenal, but actually they did not rank as high as what's happening in the Middle East, where it's almost 10 times the growth of what is happening in India or in China.
In fact, they're saying in China, because of the one-child policy and mostly male, you know, that their population is actually going to go down and their population will be much older than India's population, where almost half the country is less than, 25, 26 years old.
I think what it tells you is that there's going to be large migration patterns of people that are going to move to these less populated areas where, for whatever reason, the growth rates haven't been phenomenal. Now you're going to start to see significant change, and it's very telling to me that that change is occurring in the Middle East. Just look at the political environment in the Middle East, how much it has changed. In the next 10, 20 years, that could well be where the greatest growth occurs.
They have been celebrating. So 9 months later, we won't see how many babies they produce. That's the interesting part. You may have noticed that women who carry bags, nowadays their bags cost a lot of money.
And it's a fashion statement.
That's right. You know, particularly the leather bags. They really have gone up in prices, as much as 22%. Of course, other luxury goods have gone up, but leather in particular. And you would want to know, why is the leather price going up? But leather prices going up is because meat is very expensive. People have decreased their consumption of meat. So that means not that many animals are being slaughtered and the skin saved. So because of that, those same skins have become extremely expensive. And those of you who like Louis Vuitton and Gucci and so many others, you are really paying a very high price for these. and it is not really their fault. And then, of course, China in the mix. Everywhere, any story that you do, China is always in the mix. Now, China is buying all of those expensive bags, so consequently, it becomes more expensive for those who buy here in America. And it's all because, you know, the economy has gone down. People are not eating that much meat.
Well, I guess PETA will be pretty happy about that because, you know, they will say that, you know, having less animals slaughtered is actually a good thing. So, you know, it's a fine balance. People will say that leather has always been the top of the line as far as those materials go because of its durability, because it lasts.
Yes.
But
lasts
now,
forever.
because it is becoming more of a fashion icon, you know, the consumption of leather is in what I would say sometimes frivolous ways as opposed to real meaningful ways for actual articles that you used and kept for a lifetime. Now it's more of a fashion conscious thing.
That's right.
So in some sense, I would say this is not necessarily a bad trend. On the other hand, there are so many other materials now that are out there that offer you that same kind of durability, practicality, that to me this is not necessarily a bad trend.
Canvas bags are just as good.
That's
you know?
right.
And those of you who can't afford these Gucci's and Louis Vuittons, go to the second-hand stores. Trust me, leather lasts forever. You know, you can buy these in the second-hand store because there's so many rich women. You know, they have never worn the same sari twice.
I think there is quite a growing market for a lot of these very high-end items to have a second one, third life.
That's right. And I really wish that there is a better business model where the woman can, you know,
Exchange.
rent it. Rent it.
That's
you know, it's not how much the product costs. It's how much does it cost every time you wear it. If you buy a shirt $100, it's fine. If you wear it 200 times, then it's only 50 cents a wear. So it's, you know, it all depends
on your priorities. Folks, if you've been out looking for a job these days, you're probably finding that your resume in its very traditional format is becoming an antiquated thing.
Yeah.
Now, these days, it's all about where you are, on which websites you are, and your resume more often is now online, and it's scattered amongst a bunch of different sites. Some of these we know. Of course, Career Builder, Monster. You've got LinkedIn, which is one of the most prevalent and dominant sites in this space. But the reality is this whole area, this whole arena is experiencing a large amount of change.
Yes.
LinkedIn started this. Actually, Facebook and Twitter also started this idea of personal branding. You know, when we all got to post our profiles up on Facebook, we also put ourselves out there. And this idea of putting ourselves out there was incorporated by many sites to say, why not have your resume live online, be a living, breathing thing where you can connect to all of your other peers, and that social network will be the new way you find a job. It's not about the CV or the 2-page, 3-page resume you have. It's more about